So a friend recently suggested that I try making this croissant-style sourdough, and with a little bit of experimentation, I gave it a shot. Oh my gosh, it is absolutely incredible. It has this croissant-like flakiness, which is amazing, but then on the inside, the crumb is chewy and moist and so soft and fluffy. It has this buttery richness that is absolutely irresistible. My kids almost devoured the entire loaf right away. It's that good. It has quickly become a family favorite. There's Louie. Hi, I'm Kate and welcome to Farm Bread. Today I will show you how to make this amazing croissant-style sourdough. It may look fancy, but I'll guide you through each step so you'll see just how doable it really is. And trust me, once you taste it, you will understand exactly why my kids could not stop eating it. I think my rooster Louie wants to be on camera too. He won't stop crowing. All right, let's get to it. All right, so first things first, you want to have your kitchen scale, have it on, and make sure you're using grams. I'm gonna put my bowl on top and zero out my scale. Next, we're gonna add our starter. So we are adding 100 grams of inactive bubbly starter. I'll show you, you can see the beautiful bubbles. Mine did overflow a little bit. I knew it was gonna happen. I just didn't have a jar that was large enough that was readily available. So you want to make sure it's active and bubbly like so, and we're adding 100 grams of this nice active starter. So if you haven't made a starter yet, I am creating a little mini course on how to create your own starter and your first loaf of bread in just 8 days. So I'm super excited to launch that in the next month. In the meantime, I do have a couple of videos as well that you can check out on how to create your own starter. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And if you'd like me to notify you when my course does go live, you can email me or you could reach out to me at farmbread.org. I'm going to zero out my scale. Can go to milliliters and add 365 milliliters of warm water. Next, we're just going to stir this up. So I love the Danish dough whisk. I think it's a wonderful tool for mixing ingredients together, but you could use a spoon or a fork as well. So I make sure you mix them up so that the starter is incorporated really nicely in with the water. All right, I'm gonna set my Danish dough whisk aside, and now we're gonna add our flour and our salt. We're gonna add 500 grams of a bread flour. I'm gonna zero out my scale, go back to grams. And lastly, we're going to be adding about 10 grams of pink Himalayan salt. Okay, going to remove our scale, and now I'm just going to stir all of this together using my Danish dough whisk. Can start in the center and just kind of go in a small circle, and you'll notice the flour will come down and fall into the center. So it's an easy way to incorporate everything quickly without getting flour flying everywhere. And then once it's really, once the majority is incorporated, then you can start scraping down the sides and just kind of go along the edges with the dough and start to rotate the bowl. And then I just push it into the bottom to incorporate everything together. That's why I love this dough whisk. I feel like it's really versatile with the round edge. Helps to scrape down the sides of the bowl, but then also allowing your ingredients to mix together really nicely. All right, so now we have a nice wet like mush. I'm just gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl. Kind of pull the dough up over itself. I don't know if it's like the neat freak in me that wants to do this, or if it's just, I just think, you know, I want it all incorporated together. So get it as close to a nice ball as possible. All right, I'm gonna let the dough set for 30 minutes and rest. I'm gonna clean my Danish dough whisk, and in the meantime, I'm gonna start to grate my butter. So I'll show you how I do that, and we'll come back to this in about 30 minutes. All right, we're gonna move this aside and let it rest for 30 minutes. And now we are going to grate our butter. So I just have a regular, I'm using a salted butter. You don't have to use salted. You could you know, most recipes out there probably suggest that you don't, but I always love salted butter. So that's what I'm using. It's also what I have on hand. So I say just use what you have on hand. So we are going to grate 1 whole stick of butter. Might just kind of wrap it up in its wrapper. I have this nifty grater. I think I got it from IKEA a while back, and I love it because it actually comes with a lid that you can put on. So what I'm going to do is grate the butter, put it in the container, and then I'm going to stick this in the freezer until I am ready to, until I need it. So I'm just going to go ahead and start grating. So just use any old grater that you have on hand. I've got one of the ones that my mom used to have as well, with the big handle on top. But really any grater will do. And this is just cold butter straight from the fridge. So I didn't let it sit out at room temperature or anything like that. You want it nice and hard, so that once you incorporate it, it's not, it's staying in like a hard form. You don't want it to be soft and mix in with your dough, because then you won't have that laminating effect that you get with beautiful croissant-like breads and pastries. There's one pastry I make that I need to make for you. It's called a Danish kringle, and it's, or wienerbrød is actually really what it is. The kringle is the pretzel shape that it comes in around the holiday time, but the wienerbrød, I believe it's pronounced, is just my absolute favorite dessert of all time, and it's this almond pastry that they make in Denmark, and it is so good. All right, and that's about it. As far as I can get, I'm gonna just stick with that. Okay. So like I said, I'm gonna take our lid off, make sure I don't have any pieces on the back. Cover this up, and I'm gonna put this in the freezer until I'm ready to use it, which is probably gonna be in about roughly an hour, because we're gonna do our first set of stretch and folds at the 30-minute mark and then let it rest for another 30 minutes. And on that second stretch and fold is when we incorporate our butter. So I will see you as soon as our dough is ready for its first stretch and fold. Welcome back. It's been about 30 minutes. So now I'm going to go in with clean hands, and we're going to do our first stretch and fold, if you will. Now, my goal right now is going to be to take this wet mess and kind of turn it into a ball-like structure. So it's not going to be a super round ball, but it's going to look more of a ball than this does right here. So that's what we're going to go in and do. So I do that by going down, pulling up, and folding over. And I just do that in like a nice counterclockwise rotation. You can see the dough is starting to stretch nicely. Sometimes if you go in with slightly wet hands, it helps so that it's not as sticky on your hands. And just stretch it up as you rotate the bowl. And it's really fun to see how after you do this a couple times, it starts to form more of a dough-like consistency and texture. I kind of shake it, wobble it a little bit sometimes, just to get a nice stretch in there. Sometimes if you don't, then you feel like you're just stretching up a little part of it and the whole thing isn't moving. So you can see it's starting to come together, more of like a ball shape, right? Okay. And as we go through this process, it's really neat to see how after you let the dough rest, how that affects the glutens in the dough and how the dough starts to really come together so nicely. So, okay, this is good. I just needed to do a first initial kind of minimal stretch and fold. So I accomplished that there. It took like 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And I'm going to cover it, and then we're going to let this rest and sit for another 30 minutes. And we'll come back and do the second stretch and fold. And at that point, that is when we are going to add in our butter. So I will see you then. Welcome back. We are now on to our second stretch and fold. So we'll see how our dough is looking. Now, what we're going to do is I took our butter out of the freezer. So this is all really hard, which is what we want as we add it in. So we are going to layer our butter into, like all of this, into the dough as we stretch and fold it up. So I'm going to do that much, and then I'm going to rise this up and flip it over. I'm going to add a little bit more butter here. And I'm going to lift our dough up and stretch it over. You can already see how the glutens are working, how it's taking more shape of a dough and less like a mess, or like a mush like it did before. Okay, so now I'm adding some more butter. I'm just going to lift this up and pull it over. So this is creating like layers, if you will, kind of like when you're laminating, you're adding layers of pastry and butter, or dough and butter. That's exactly what we're doing here. So stretch and lift up. You're going to pull it to the side. Try to get the rest on here, because you don't want to blend these together. You want to layer them. Okay, I'll lift this up. This last one's a little bit harder to do because you have our dog is getting older, and I think he just slipped on the floor, sadly. So sorry, I got pulled away for a second. Okay, so I am just flipping this up and over, and we're going to try to incorporate the butter as best we can. You can see it's not totally incorporating as well because we just put a whole pound or a whole stick of butter into it. So go in gently and just lift up and pull it over. At this point, you don't want it to get too warm by the touch of your hand. So you really want to do this as quickly as possible. So I'm kind of going around to the edges and lifting up and tucking under with my other fingers. Now I'm just kind of creating this nice little ball here. I'm lifting up. There we go. All right, I really don't want to touch this too much more. I'm just getting it into like a nice soft ball. You can see the butter kind of coming through underneath. And we are going to let this sit for another 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and do one final round of stretch and folds before we let it sit for its bulk rise overnight. All right, I'll see you in about 30 minutes. It's been a little bit over 30 minutes, and we are ready to do our last stretch and folds before our final bulk rise. I do have a little glass of water here. I'm just gonna get my hands a little bit damp to go on, because as we are trying to preserve the layering of the butter, I don't really want to go in and blend it too much. So I really want to go in very gently, lift, and fold back down. So we'll go in, kind of lift, stretch. Just do this a couple times. You can see it's really starting to form a nice shiny surface here, which is great. Okay, now just gently give it a little shake and jiggle as we shape it into a nice little ball. Okay. Great. I think that is good. So I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap. Don't mind me, this has been used before. I like to reuse it as much as possible. I hate the thought of using plastic wrap once and then throwing it away. So I'm going to put this layer of plastic wrap on, and then we will stay covered overnight, and I will see you tomorrow morning. So what time is it? It's almost 8 o'clock, and I will try to come back in about around 12 hours or so, maybe 11 to 12 hours. What we want is the dough to be double in size. So once we achieve that, we can come in and start working again. All right, there we go. And I'll cover this up. All right, I'll see you in the morning. Okay, good morning. We have let our dough rise overnight. Okay, we're looking for double in size. I definitely think we got there. Look how beautiful this has risen. This is amazing. This is such an incredible recipe. So you can see how nice and jiggly this is. I'm going to turn our dough out onto a lightly floured surface. So I'm just going to be using all-purpose flour for the dusting on the surface. So I'm just going to move our dough over to the side as I sprinkle a little flour around. Now we're just going to turn the dough gently out onto the counter. You can see how it just kind of slips right out. And honestly, part of that is from the butter. It just pours right out of our container really nicely. You can kind of scrape the edges if you don't want to leave any remnants. Now what I like to do is put my bowl in the sink right away, because I'm going to rinse this with water really quickly and then I'll come back. What's really nice here is you can still see our little pieces of butter. It has not blended into the dough, so that's going to help us with that laminating. And it's also going to give us that nice croissant-like texture. So I'm going to flour my hands a little bit more, and I'm just going to lift up and start to shape my dough. Again, if you watch my videos, I like to use oval or oblong bakers. Just fold over. Remember, we're not kneading, we're just folding over. This is such a beautiful texture. So light and fluffy. So yeah, we're laminating. We don't want to smush the butter into the dough at all. So we want to be super gentle at this phase. Just kind of tighten the shape. Again, get some flour on your hands if you're feeling a little stick. tuck the ends under. I'm gonna put some flour in my proofing basket. My bakers are also oblong, so you're gonna have your proofing basket match your baker or whatever you're using. So if you're going to be using a Dutch oven, obviously you're going to be making a round circle, or a baking stone. Could be using a loaf pan, obviously, and that would be more of this oblong shape. So my shape right now is going to be that oblong kind of ovally long shape. Okay, so we've got this tightened up nicely. I'm going to just let it sit for a little bit while I go get my bench scraper. I'll come back and I will put it into my proofing basket. So now we're going to use our bench scraper to help us get our dough into our proofing basket. So I'm just going to get a little bit of flour on my top and on my hands. I'm going to use our bench scraper to help tighten the shape again. Do that by just kind of pushing down and under and rolling the dough towards you. Okay, so I'm going to pick this up. Lift up, and I'm putting this in seam side up. What I like to do is sprinkle a little bit of this flour right on top, because this is what's going to go down into our baker. Just to get anything that's a little damp. There we go. I'm going to let this sit while I preheat my oven to 450 degrees. So this will proof for about 30 to 45 minutes, and then we're going to put it in the oven and bake. Our oven has preheated to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Our dough is looking great in our proofing basket. So I'm going to take our baking pan out of the oven. I love that little steam at the beginning. Okay, I'm going to pour our dough into our pan. There we go. And I'm going to gently try to score the top. Let's do this gently. It is doable, but it's a little bit harder when it's not cold from the fridge. So just go gently. Score the top with your alarm to create that beautiful ear during the bake. I love these gloves. If you do not have them, I would definitely recommend getting some oven-proof gloves, heat-resistant gloves. They make moving around, lids and all that, holding pans so much easier. Okay, so now I'm going to bake for 20 minutes covered, and then in 20 minutes I'm going to take the lid off. So I'm going to set my timer. So I will come back and show you how our bread is looking in the oven in about 20 minutes. The girls have come up for their morning treat. Sunflower seeds. Okay, it's been 20 minutes, so we're going to take the lid off. Oh my gosh, this looks incredible. Can you get in there? I'm setting our timer for 30 minutes and we will come back. You may want, around the 20-minute mark, you may want to tint this with some tin foil if it's getting a little bit too dark. It's typically what I do. All right, our timer is off, so I'm going to take our bread out of the oven. Oh my gosh, this looks incredible. Just wait till you taste it though. I'm going to take it out of the pan and set it on a cooling rack. All right, so we're going to let this sit for about an hour, and then we'll dig in and I'll show you how this looks. How beautiful does this look? Oh my gosh, it is so good. It's got this rich, buttery flavor, nice and crunchy and flaky. I cannot wait to open it up and show you guys. Just cut right down the middle. So you can see how beautiful this crumb is. It's nice and fluffy, it's light, but it has that sourdough texture, but when you cut into it, it has this moist, buttery, rich flavor and crumb that is just absolutely delicious. All right, I'm gonna cut a piece for you. All right, here we go. So delicious. So the top of the loaf has this amazing buttery flakiness that is so good, very reminiscent of a croissant. And then the inside has this amazing crumb that's so chewy. It's moist, it's fluffy. This is definitely one that everyone's gonna love. I hope you give it a try. If you do, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share pictures in the community tab. It's always fun to see what you guys create. If you're enjoying this content, please like, subscribe, and share. If you have any questions, comment below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. If you have feedback, I absolutely adore it. So definitely comment below and I will check that out. And if you have any suggestions or would like me to make a certain type of bread, or recipe, definitely throw that in the comments below as well, and I will add it to my to-do list. Thanks again for watching. I hope you guys have a great time baking, and I'll see you in the next video.